Quiet on the set. Here we go. Five, four, three, two, one. Hello, everybody. I'm dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy. Welcome to Mondays with Myrt, where we talk about anything and everything that's come across our Genia desk in the last week since last we met. And we've got a cadre of awesome panelists today. First, let me mention that we've got Sherry over on the YouTube side, corralling all you folks that are over there. But I would like to ask the panelists, one by one, I'll call on you. Tell me what you've done, genealogically speaking, in the last week. So, Maria, you're right next to me there on the screen. What you been doing?
I was away with my family up at the hunting cabin, and my grandson, for the first time, did archery for deer. He didn't get anything, but he had the experience and the time with his grandfather and his uncle.
Memories.
And
that's precious,
I get
memory.
all choked up thinking about it. So
I do too. In Utah, the deer hunters that hunt with bows are considered the serious deer hunters.
Yes.
Because it is quite an art.
And it's challenging, yes.
I know how to cook venison. I learned because we always ate what was caught.
Yes.
And it was shared because not everybody gets their deer. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So thank you for that. We need to be making memories with the grandkids. That's going to stick in that kid's brain.
Yep. Yeah, he's up for sure.
I love it. All right, Frank, our guy in Germany, done anything genealogically in the last week?
I have actually digged up two floor plans of a house from someone that I am researching at the moment.
So what did you discover about in the making of this floor plan?
The floor plans were from an observatorium and where the whole family was housing besides having done research in astronomically.
So this is interesting to put in our own minds or your readers' minds, the people you share it with, what exactly the living circumstances were.
Exactly.
I can remember when I went to Sweden and they had this kind of restored village where they moved in antique old buildings. And, it's very cold and snowy there in the winter. And the house is such that you walk in and that ground level is where the animals live. You go up a narrow staircase and up to the main house, which is just basically two rooms. That was so because heat rises and, very different experience from anything I've had or that my children or grandchildren have had. So again, it's putting that ancestor into perspective. So cool beans. I like that. How about our guy in that foreign country known as California? Randy, your birthday's coming up on Thursday, is it?
Yep.
So happy birthday a couple of days in advance.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
It's not a big one.
Not a big one? You're not counting them?
Easily divided by 9. Yeah.
Okay. So what have you been doing genealogically speaking?
Well, I had a highlight yesterday. I went and visited my daughter, Tammy, up in Huntington Beach, and her 3 children and my son-in-law. And we had a good time. We painted some pumpkins. Mine was not as admirable as the kids were, but that's okay. In genealogy, I made some more short biographies using Roots Magic narrative report. These are the facts in one paragraph, the spouse's facts in another paragraph, and then the listing of the kids. And I put those in my notes in Roots Magic for each family. So I have about 2,500 of those to do, and I've probably done about 100 so far.
Wow.
So
good.
trying
So I
to
put the link
read
to
it live
Roots.
every night. Yeah.
I put the link to Roots Magic out. It's happens to be our genealogy program of choice.
Yeah.
And good. I recommend that people find out from their local area of friends and maybe their genealogy society who's using which program. Find out why they like it when you go to meetings. And consider that those friends that are close by can be of great help to you if you're having to learn to do something like creating the narrative in Roots Magic. However, we have a great friend called YouTube, and most of the genealogy software programs take advantage of that with little training videos. Yeah, very cool. All right, let me go to Hillary, our gal in Wales. Hillary, what you been doing genealogically speaking?
Well, apart from a lot of my usual things, which is updating stuff on Wikitree, I have started to build a private family archive on a website called We Are XYZ. I was fortunate enough to win a 6 months subscription to the website and then a 6 months at half price. And then I'm sure by then I'm going to be well and truly getting the family organised. So I'm quite happy to pay for the subscription after that. That was on the All About That Place, which today had we had a Zoom at lunchtime today here. We had a Zoom meeting for feedback on All About That Place, which took place earlier this month.
You may remember in the beginning, one of the first few weeks of the New Mondays with Myrt, we had the main guy from We Are up visiting with us and demonstrating. And so we're very, very familiar with that. I'm working on that myself. So I'm aware. So it's a space on the web for your family to share their memories digitally, and their digital photos, etc. Okay, let's get back to the panelists and see what we've got here. Now we're in a different position. I have to remember who I've already asked. Ellen, what have you been doing genealogically speaking?
Well, right now I'm working on a YouTube video about my great grandfather and the fact that he was convicted of bootlegging.
Oh my, that was a thing. I wonder if, politically speaking, bootlegging isn't so bad after all.
Oh, wait until you hear his story.
Well, be sure. Well, once you have your YouTube video up, and by the way, folks, any of us can have a YouTube channel. It's free. You just use your Gmail account, and when you are there and click and go into YouTube, you can set up an account. That's how people are pushing content out. So when you get it posted, please post the link over in Dear Myrtle's Facebook group, okay? Because I want to spotlight whatever it is you're doing.
Well, you can decide whether he was entrapped or not.
Oh, he got caught.
Oh.
Yeah, he got caught. Yeah, I hear you. Well, we want to hear about it, so let us know. Okay, so our gal in the great state of Texas, how are you doing and what have you been doing genealogically, Linda?
I have been taking a course from the Salt Lake Institute of Genealogy this fall, and it's the advanced practicum course where you're given a problem and told this, and you may or may not get all the information. This week is DNA week, so I've got a case from Paul Woodbury, and it involves at least 56 people and trying to find the biological father of one.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So having fun playing DNA and spreadsheets this week.
Paul's very good at explaining his logic during the wrap up. He's also very interested in what you're doing, and so he's a very good instructor. Remember when we sat next to each other in another advanced evidence analysis practicum? Ugh, that's a lot to say, let alone do. When we did it in person, we had one day, 24 hours. Do you like it where it's 1 week?
We actually prefer one day.
Get the torture over with?
Yeah. Because dragging it out for 6 weeks and knowing you've made mistakes every week for 6 weeks gets slightly depressing, but
Oh dear. All right, let me show that. I put the link out. Let me share my screen. This is Salt Lake Institute of Genealogy, and they are known for, let me zoom in a little, for rigorous intermediate to advanced classes. And the advanced evidence analysis practicum, you really need to have taken some more introductory courses. It was developed after Tom Jones' methodology course had been taught, and people wanted to have challenges. So the idea, this isn't the course you're taking, Melinda, as you well know, is a matter of they give you a challenge, like to find who's the daddy, and they give you a little bit of information, a little bit of DNA evidence, and you've got to work up through the tree. In other words, you have to do the actual research. The same thing happens if it's a different type of a research question, like trying to decipher between two John Smiths in one area, and you've got a week to do it if you're doing this virtually, or 24 hours. Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a
I've
challenge.
been having fun.
Okay. So, Dave, cousin Dave, how are you doing? You muted yourself. Do you want to unmute?
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, I I was embarrassed that I was living with Maria Capaldi, and also when I got with Ellen. So I went into my pictures, and what I did was I got a picture of a compound that a friend of mine built. I grew up with this guy, and he said to his wife, they're both very, very, very successful business people, and very successful business people. So he challenged his wife to find a place to retire, and she picked Ecuador.
Wow.
So this is a picture of the front gate to his compound, and he's got 10 fabulously, unbelievably beautiful homes built there. He sold them all out. It took him almost 6 months. Good for you, Dan. But anyway, he came. But he came up last week to. He's a member of our Romeo Club, the retired old man.
Yeah.
So he comes up 3 or 4 times a year. Anyway, the bottom line is I moved to Ecuador in the middle of this whole thing.
Okay.
What else have I
been playing around with his background? Because he had the same background as Maria and then as Ellen.
And thanks to Randy, he reminded me how to add some backgrounds.
So technology's fun. But the interesting thing that keeps us going sometimes, we're not always hot on the trail of an elusive ancestor. Sometimes we're doing let's take the grandkid out and go hunting with grandpapa. But what Dave did was meet with some friends, and they talk about the old times, and memories come up, recollections. And I hope that you're writing them down, or that you're videotaping yourself on your cell phone and uploading that to your YouTube channel
Well, a
to
lot of these guys are
preserve the
old
memories.
fashioned. They're old fashioned. They would probably get nervous if I broke out my camera and started taking their pictures
Well,
and videos and such.
yeah,
So
but
it's up to me to
yeah,
keep
you
track.
can only record yourself or by permission the
Mm.
other people.
Yeah.
But when you've gone to something like that, it's like, well, first of all, it's fun to relax with your friends. It's a nice comic relief from trying to decipher old handwriting on a census record because this looks like your family. You got to have that comic relief. You got to go paint a pumpkin, stuff like that. We can't be nose to the grindstone. In fact, the way our subconscious works, it's more creative and understanding and good at solving problems than the forefront, whatever this part is of our brain. So good
And you're
reason
right.
to take
We
it
have.
easy.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good reason to take it easy, but also for the memories that come to mind as you're driving away. Gosh, I wish I'd said this, and I remember that we wore that the girls wore poodle skirts and saddle shoes. Kids don't even know what a poodle skirt is or saddle
What is a
shoes.
poodle skirt, dear Myrt?
No, I was the age where we wore mini skirts and fishnet stockings, which my mom would never let me wear fishnet. But my grandmother sent me a pair. They were like pantyhose, but white fishnet. But because grandmother sent them to me, then my mother relented and let me wear them. Oh, the 60s were a marvelous time.
The interesting thing is when I was in grammar school, Catholic school, the girls had to kneel on the floor and their hemline had to touch the floor. If not, they called the parents. The parents had to pick them up,
wow.
and we couldn't have our hair.
Absolutely.
We couldn't have our hair touch the collar in the back. It had to be cut up high enough that it didn't touch the collar.
And you probably couldn't wear jeans. You had to wear like chinos or cords.
You blasphemer! Jeans?
Yeah. So,
Oh no, we had uniforms. But anyway, I did sign up for Roots Tech finally.
okay,
We
I'll
got
see
our
you.
hotel signed up, and Karen and I are going to head out there.
We will see you.
Fly out for sure. But beyond Roots Tech, and I haven't even dived into anything other than the hotel and where we're going to stay and this and that.
Okay.
But thank you. I have to thank you profusely for broadcasting my presentation last week on Connecticut, Massachusetts.
Yes.
There are quite a few people that, what? I said, well, yeah, because it used to be this and that. And they were very, very confused, as was I. But anyway.
I'm glad you had a good turnout.
What's that?
I'm glad you had a good turnout for your presentation.
Yes.
So let's see what our audience, the community is saying. Betty Lou's here today. There's Frank. It's chilly here, but not cold. But anyway, there's our Randy. Sherry, let us know where you're from. She's from Central Iowa. It's going to be in the 80s in late October. What do you know? There's Janet.
We're hitting 80 today.
Oh my, that's crazy. Finally fall in Texas. Okay. Hi, Valerie. 81. You guys, we hardly hit 80 in the summertime this year. Okay, where are we? Joyce is here from Arizona. Betty Lou is letting us know that she's from Arkansas, but I knew that. Hi, Deb. And Andrew's here, kind of drizzly over there in the UK. Denine's here. I love that cheerful smile in that picture. Yeah, Flo's from Oregon. We get some beautiful sunsets here in the Pacific Northwest, don't we? Hi, Diane Bush from Ohio, from my game night friends. So good to see you. Kathy Nabrowski, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Warm in this time of year. I can't believe it. Hi, Sherry. So appreciate your work in the YouTube side. There's my Roots Magic. Valerie's here. Yeah. Happy birthday. At our age, each one is significant. So Valerie begs to differ with you. And when it says Dear Myrtle's Archive, my part of Wales is sunny, we know that's from Hillary, but I've given her admin rights. It comes across as Dear Myrtle Archive. So it's not like I'm doing all that typing. The cat's decided to climb up her cat tree and with a bound. Sorry, I was a little startled. Hi, Randall. Um, he's a family tree maker user. Good for you. And I'm glad that you're able to log in. My friends in Bradenton and Anna Maria Island on the south side of Tampa Bay, you're in Clearwater on the north side. It's been difficult. I know I've been through a few hurricanes living in Bradenton myself. Not now. Bootlegging would be one of those things that would depend on where and when it was done. Okay, John Tracy, Shaker Heights. We got a couple of Ohioans. There's me again. That was really me. There's the world's greatest neighbor, Maria. And she's moved from the old neighborhood. Guten Tag. They're having a whole relationship, the two of them. And Betty Lou said she just discovered Perplexity could not help her with anything related to Italian forces in World War I, but ChatGPT can. So someday, Betty Lou, when you run across challenges like that, I would like to recreate it. We need to know your prompt. And I hadn't asked for that before on my account. On your account, the more you ask, the more Perplexity and these learn. We could test that out. So maybe keep that in mind before it disappears off your list of Perplexity. Yeah, that's a good point. Frank is explaining we really have to teach these, Perplexity, all this large language, artificial intelligence. It isn't a Google search. Don't think of it like a Google search. Think of it as a research assistant that can take what you found, arrange it, analyze it, bring out points that you might have missed in a multi-page document, create songs and poems for you. We'll have to talk some more. Gosh, we got a lot of people here today. Hi, Karen from Southern Oregon. And Maria has a question, and then we'll get to a very interesting topic about Find My Past. NGS is an AI course that was recorded in March. Would it be worth the money to take, or should I save my education budget to take a live course as things change weekly? It's now too old.
Yeah.
March is too old.
Mm.
I love the National Genealogical Society here in the United States. Stephen Little is the director of the AI courses. You need to subscribe to his, not his blog, his podcast with Mark Thompson. And literally, Maria, believe me, I took 2 institute courses. They couldn't give us the handout in advance. They had to give us a summary of what we talked about because things change about every 3 days, 2 or 3 days. It's like, and it gets compounded as competition. They get better, but yeah, don't spend the money there. Take a live course. And there will likely be one next summer at GRIP. All right, good to know. Yeah, I want to save your research dollars. Okay, so Hillary, I'm going to bring your shared screen up. And what are we going to talk about? Oh, I remember. Before we get too far into this, let me just mention the reason I want to have you talk with us about findmypast.com. I want to break people out of the mold of being ancestry or family search centric as a resource for original documents that And many of us here in the United States, in Australia, in Canada, have ancestors who were born in UK, Ireland. And so this is like our foray into looking at how to use that website. And the example we're going to use is the fact that each weekend, starting this past weekend, for a total of 4 weekends, Find My Past is making a set of records available for free. So rather than just telling you about it in a quick lightning round, I would like Hillary to talk with us about the website and how to navigate. And I will tell you, look especially for the fact that you could pay for full access of records that you might need that aren't included in the free weekend, or you can pay for just one document at a time. That's completely different from what we're normally accustomed to with a subscription website. Okay, Hillary, take it away. Let me put that on stage and talk to me about Find My Past, because you eat, sleep, and breathe this website, basically. You must be muted, dear.
I haven't used a great deal recently, but I have got my family up on Find My Past as well as Ancestry.
Okay.
And I find that Find My Past is better for some things and Ancestry is better for other things. Obviously, all my research pretty much is based in the UK, in England mainly, but also some of them have actually been in Wales, so and they've moved around a bit inside the country. So it very much depends on where somebody is in the country, which website is the best in terms of original documents. But they do have a commonality. One good thing about Find My Past is the newspapers. It's there is so much. If you want to build more than just your basics of birth, marriage, death, census, then really the newspapers can open up things a lot more. They can tell you a lot more about things that you might not have come across otherwise.
Yeah, their newspaper archive is incredible. And they're adding entire years of thousands and thousands of pages every time I turn around because I subscribe and get all their notices. All right. So basically, we log in to Find My Past as you've done, and you can actually search it without you can search a lot without having to pay.
Yeah, there's quite a lot on the newspapers that are actually free. I go to the newspaper link.
Okay.
They've got search newspapers.
Yep.
Right. You just go, and a lot of them, there's a lot of newspapers. They will bring up things on your timelines to things that are free. So don't necessarily need to be logged. You just need to have an account sometimes to access some of them. So I mean, they're talking about all these numbers of all these millions of newspaper pages and that. But you can actually get free stuff. Let me see what they've got.
So that's not unlike Family Search that offers their record sets for free. Some of them you have to be at a Family Search Center to look at them. It has to do with the contract with the archive in question. But it's also so you can, make posts, etc. But getting into it, you're looking at the newspaper department, the newspaper section.
So basically, see what was in the news 21st of October. So all of these are free, different newspapers.
Okay.
That was relatively recent, 1994. 74, 98, then we're talking about 1957 there, and different parts of the country. So it's various things. Some of the things are free, and some of the papers are free, whatever. But you may not know which ones are free. Yeah, you know, I mean, this has happened. All these things. I mean, apart from one of these, they're all in my lifetime. So.
All right. When I've done research, I've needed to use the Guardian. Is that part of the Find My Past collection, or is that a separate newspaper archive for England?
The Guardian, I don't know when they first published it, but if it was more of a historic newspaper, it will be part of the British newspaper archive.
Okay.
Some of the more recent issues of the newspapers, often they have their own website to host those. I have used some of the sort of more recent things for some of the newspapers, in some of the areas where I'm interested in. But usually you have to go to that particular newspaper's own website to see anything then.
Okay. And that sounds familiar, because we know there's newspapers.com. We know that there's a great newspaper collection at Genealogy Bank, and also like the Library of Congress has its Chronicling America newspaper collection, and individual states may have at their state archive, etc., may have the newspaper collection that they've digitized. So it's not like this newspaper collection at Find My Past is all inclusive. It's one of several robust and deep and broad collections of newspapers to search. And of course, it's going to be the last website that somebody looks at before you find something about an ancestor. We just don't want you to forget that they have newspapers here. Okay.
One of the best things of actually being on that one is being able to access the newspapers. And sometimes you'll find things that you didn't realize. You're looking for somebody and they'll bring up a newspaper thing. When I go back to this person.
So you've got a tree. Do you have a tree there?
Yeah, I've got a tree. This person was killed in the First World War, which is why I think a lot of the Find My Past things have been some things are being made free, is because they want people to be interested in people that maybe didn't come back from the war, or how much things changed the war. That we in the British Isles, they've had a program that was focusing on some house history, and a new series has just started it's called A House Through Time, and this time it's actually looking at two different places. It's looking at somewhere in London and another place in Berlin, and it's discussing the effects of the war on those places, which is quite interesting, because obviously it's affecting the people that lived in those particular places, and because they're looking at a block of apartments in each place, they're looking at more than one household as well.
Okay.
So, this is part of why they're doing it, because of all our military things, our Remembrance Day.
Remembrance Day's coming up.
Yeah.
Could you talk to me about the 1921 census? I see it's a drop-down menu option at the top. Now, in England and Wales, they did a census every 10 years, but it's off by 1 year compared to the United States. Ours was, like 1920, 1930. Is 1921 your most recently available census?
other than the 1939 register, which is not a true census, in
Yeah.
as much as what they recorded wasn't exactly the same. In fact, 1939 register is really a substitute for what would have been the 1941 census, which we didn't have because of the war. That's become, but the actual censuses, the way they're doing them, that is the most recent one that's available. We now won't get one till the 1951, I think, because I think the 1931 got destroyed or something. I'm sure that we haven't got 1931. I think there was a problem with that one. So there's a really big gap before we get any more census information.
Yeah, that's a major gap.
Yeah.
So one of the things that happened here in the United States, there was a fire, and due to water damage, our 1890 census is missing. But there was also a veterans and widow of veterans enumeration that was done in 1890, and that did survive. But it isn't as big, obviously, as the 1939 registry that you talked about. Why was that taken? I know why, but I'd like to hear you tell them.
I believe it was done because they needed to know where everybody was that was not in the military. So they've pretty much got every single household. They need to know how many people they're going to, if this war carries on for any length of time, they need to know who they're going to have to feed and who they could perhaps call up if they need to.
They did, to understand, where the farms are and what they grew principally. Was it, was it a dairy farm? Did they, was it some, they grew wheat, or, what they needed to know, those specifics, to figure out who have we got left. And how can that best be used for the good of the country, for the good of the people of the country. Okay, so thank you, Frank, for doing that background stuff for me. I appreciate that. And let me go back to sharing your screen. I had taken that off for a bit. All right, let's have you hit your back button, and let's click a typical search.
Yeah, let's see, who shall we search for?
Yeah.
So we can search all records. Right. Now I've got it set up for Britain, but we can actually search the whole world if we need to.
There are some partnerships with U.S. record set holders, etc. Let's do a birth, marriage, and death and parish records search, just to show them what it looks like. That would be the second category. Yeah. And let's just pick a random name. It doesn't have to be our ancestor, just so they can see. First of all, it's a good website. It returns and updates very quickly. Okay, and the last name. Okay.
It could be anybody. Right. But
yeah,
I'm hoping there is one. Yeah, it's given some results anyway. Yeah, I haven't put any dates in at all. I've just put in that right. particular name, and we've got 486 results. So.
All right, so let's click there. Now, the kind of account you have, is it full access? Because I don't want you to have to. Okay.
Yeah, I've got full access.
So let's just pick one. Now, some of these are very old, and we know that 1837 is when public vital records of birth, marriage, and death were required. So when it says somebody was born in 1717, even without looking to see that it's that third one is Cambridgeshire baptisms.
Yeah.
What have you got on? What are those icons on the right side?
Right. You have two icons. This type of icon is a transcript,
Mm-hmm.
and then this one is an image.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, we'd actually have an image of that Norfolk marriage record.
Mm-hmm.
So if I click
Can we
on
look at it to
Yeah.
see what it looks like?
that, right.
Kind of looks familiar, doesn't it, guys? A film strip somewhere on the screen, not unlike Fold 3, for instance.
Mm.
And there are tools to zoom in and out. Yeah, you can close that.
You can add it to your tree if you've got if this refers to somebody that's on your tree, you can add it to the tree. You can print it out. You can download it. And there's adjustments as well to help you.
Could you zoom in so we can look at that handwriting? It looks pretty good from here. Yeah. Beautiful handwriting. Thank heavens. And no bleed through from the other side.
Even though it's water damaged, it's still quite legible.
Baptisms. Okay, so we got some comments. Randy is saying, Find My Past has parish records images for some of the UK counties, but not all. They do have indexed records for all counties. Good point. Thank you.
Yeah, they have things other than the things with the images. They have things that some of the family history societies will have transcribed, and they're usually quite good because they've usually been transcribed by one person, and at least one other person will have looked at it to just check that it's correct before they put it on. So
I like that when so here we tend to call them genealogy societies. Over in England, they tend to call them family history societies. And even in the very early days, when we barely had online services, we didn't have internet yet. You just belonged to America Online or CompuServe or whatever. We heard about little pamphlets that the family history societies would make explaining about maybe the parishes in their area. And they're very active even still. I noticed that when we were in Birmingham for that genealogy conference, that they had some very motivated family history societies who a couple of them had really large booths in the exhibit hall. Whereas here, if you go to an exhibit hall, except for a few national organizations, maybe Ohio or HistGen, typical local local genealogy societies in the United States can't afford to be in the exhibit hall at $800 to $1,200 for one little table. So, folks, we need to expand our concept, our understanding of the locals, the boots on the ground people who know these record sets and have done years and years of work indexing and transcribing wherever possible.
I don't know if you've noticed on this marriage record, the good thing is that they've mentioned that whether people were a widower or single.
Oh, yeah. Let me zoom in a little more here. Just a second. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So that doesn't happen as a rule. Some of the Norfolk records are actually quite good. They actually mention on some of the baptisms in some of the parishes what the mother's maiden name was. And these are in things prior to 1837. You wouldn't get that in all the parish records. You really do need to see what there is in there. I mean, this one's quite good in terms of marriage, because obviously, particularly if you see if a woman's a widow, then you've got to think, well, that's not her maiden name. She's been previously married. Who was she? Who did she marry? Who was she? Then you're looking for another marriage, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Sounds. I mean, this is absolutely wonderful. The fact the guy can't spell marriages very well. He did put in some pretty good clues about widowhood or being single.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So Melinda has a comment here. Let me bring it up. I'm not sure she's here. Oh, Melinda, let me bring you up on stage. Go ahead and say this for the recording.
Parish records are often recorded by parish secretaries, not the rector or the priest, because the rector and priest will come in and just throw a note on the desk, or there will be a calendar notation, and it's actually the parish secretary that fills out the record books.
Well, it's pretty
So,
nice, whatever this is. And then here's another concept too. Sometimes we're looking at the original parish record, and sometimes there's a thing called bishop's transcript that has survived.
Yep.
Can you tell us about those, Hillary?
Yeah. Every, I think it was when they had the quarter days, they had the vicars and that had to send off a copy of all the births, marriages, and deaths that they'd been in burials. Sorry, not deaths. Births, and the baptisms, marriages, and burials, not births. They had to send a copy of their register to their bishops and that. So this is where the bishops transfer to the archbishop, so that they've got a copy. And they can be different from the actual parish record. So if you can access both, do so, because you can find things are missing from one but they're in the other. So it is definitely worth looking at them. Yeah, I mean, one of my husband's ancestors was actually a parish clerk, which I think is what Melinda was saying, and that for the parish. So it's possible, although I haven't chased it up and I ought to, it's possible that he may have written a lot of the entries for the parish that he was in.
Mm-hmm. So I was always taught too that when you think that the library or the office of an archbishop is probably in that building, that edifice is probably in better condition than a typical tiny little remote parish in the, off in the distance. They still need a new roof and haven't raised enough money to replace it. And in a couple of situations, that was my conclusion when there was no parish record, although for the time period, there were for other time periods of the same parish, but I had to rely on the bishop's transcripts. That's all that apparently had survived. So, yeah, you got to learn about those things.
I've come across parishes where the records have been damaged, and I know they've been damaged because that's what the archive have actually said that they've got. They've had the only one they've got is one of them, maybe because of the damage that's happened at some point, a fire or something, or water damage.
So Frank has a question for you.
Yeah, I wanted to know when you, aka the United Kingdom, start with civil records.
Civil records. The civil records started in 1837 for the births and the marriages and the deaths. Mm-hmm. So from 1837, you could be married somewhere. I think it was straight away, other than the church. Obviously, there were already people getting married in different, because there were different religions, that the Quakers were getting married differently and things. But they set up register offices, which is where people could get married in a civil ceremony. So so that's why, even though the church records are quite useful, you may not find somebody's marriage in the church record because they might not have got married in the church.
It's tricky.
And even also now, because they get married the civil registration, people can get married in anywhere that's licensed for marriages.
Yep.
Okay. So Randy has a question about the availability countrywide. Randy, can you pose that question?
Yeah, I've always wondered what percentage of Church of England records, baptism, marriage, burial, are recorded for the entire population in 1800 or 1700. How much did they miss? Do you have any idea? Is there a study that does that?
I've got no idea. I mean, because they possibly these things got recorded, but obviously not all the records are extant now. Some of them will have got destroyed at some point, either either in the church itself. Some probably weren't recorded properly, like they should have been, and a lot of them will just have been subject to some kind of problem. Yeah, so we really difficult to know whether they actually because there's books on recording of the census as well, because I was reading a book about setting up the census. I didn't finish the book, but I certainly know that they had great difficulties when they first set up the census, trying to record everybody, because they were dependent on the church and things, and not everybody was keen to join in and let them know, or keen, or didn't even have the knowledge of their local, even though they were depending a lot on the clergy for a lot of it. So I suspect a lot of people were not recorded.
Yeah, it can get challenging. Here in the United States, we can't. Well, first of all, it'd be great if we had a national public vital records, birth, marriage, and death from day one, but we don't, because each state has different statutes regarding the keeping of records. It wasn't actually a federal requirement to start keeping birth, marriage, and death records in the United States not till 1920. But part of that has no basis in fact, because New England, think of Connecticut, they kept really good town records of those things. Cousin Dave here on the panel has taught us that. And there are certain churches in the United States that only keep their records to themselves. Notably, the Catholic Church made a decision they didn't want to, this was a number of years ago, like 20 years ago probably, that they did not want the LDS Church to come in and microfilm. But some bishops have decided, yes, it's okay. And others have decided, no, it's not. We're going with the Pope on this. And so it's a hit or miss, but it's really hard when you have an unreliable census. I'm sure there are people that did not make the census, did not respond to census enumerators during World War II because they were of Germanic descent and still had a thick accent. Yeah. Dave, cousin Dave, let me pull you up here so that you can make that comment about Plymouth Colony. When did they start keeping records?
300 years before the U.S. decided to keep vital records everywhere.
Yeah.
Plymouth Colony,
Yep.
birth, and half of the passengers on the Mayflower died that first winter.
Yeah.
So they have all sorts of, well, not all sorts, but they have some pretty thorough records on who was on the ship, who was born, who died, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, he kept good records on his passengers. Okay, so let's go back and look at your shared screen. Let me share my screen. Let me do that, because what I want to do is show when you log in and go to certain places on Find My Past, you will see this No Story Left Behind. And that's the promotion to keep in mind where you will have free access. They said you could search until October 21st. Well, they haven't changed their homepage yet. Remember, it's every weekend for 4 weekends, and so they've got 3 left. And so you'll log in to Find My Past. It's free. And look for this No Story Left Behind. And then whatever record set is made available. Apparently you can enter to win a subscription. I have a complimentary subscription. I must disclose that. And I can access it freely. There are certain things I still have to pay for, which I do not mind ever paying for online digital image record collection access. Yeah. And the reason they want to have you win a subscription is they want to hear about your discoveries, hear what you found. They've also given you an example to follow and use this website. So log in, go to No Story Left Behind, and then you can follow this process of research as if Harry Griffiths was your ancestor. And you'd start with the census. Does that sound familiar, guys? Yeah. That puts a family in a certain place at a certain time. Hillary, do you want to pull up the next thing you want to share? And we'll go from there. Let me show you what the census looked like. And we will type in, I forgot his name already. What was his name? Let me go back. Okay. C.E. Griffiths. Okay, so we will click here. So it's just initials. C.E. Griffiths. All right. And there's 218 results. And we're only looking in the 1921 census. And apparently it's still free, so quickly go use it, guys. I turned it off. Okay. So let's just imagine that this is the ancestor. There's the transcript. We'll look at an actual transcript. So I call this an abstract, where it isn't the actual word for word. I'm not sure. We can copy it, though, to the clipboard if we select it and copy. But let's view the original record so you can see what it looks like. Those of us here in the United States need to be aware of these various census. And I think they do a great job. This is a census of England and Wales from 1911. Boy, these pages had been folded, hadn't they?
This was their actual handwriting as well. This was written by the householder. Unlike some of our other censuses, the 1911 was actually what the householder actually filled in.
That's incredible. So this guy happened to be a wholesale grocer, and his 2 sons were working with him. He's 71, and the sons are 37 and 34. Householder made a mistake. The daughter was 29, and there's a servant. And this is information about the birthplace of a person. And these look like not just Cardiff. Well, I'm not sure what that, yeah.
Llanelli in Carmarthenshire.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what there's Neath, Glamorgan. I'm not sure what the top one is. That's somewhere else. My Welsh isn't that good for that one. That's somewhere else in Carmarthenshire. London, okay. Aber in Glamorgan, and Penarth in Glamorgan. So these apart from the one that was born in London, they were all born in Wales. Those.
Okay. So you'd have to know what these abbreviations meant.
Yeah.
Because right off the bat, you helped us understand and decipher this. So what you need to do is have Hillary sitting on one shoulder to help you. Okay.
It's when
And
they're
then,
written in Welsh. We do
yeah.
get 1911 census written in Welsh. I've because one of my one place studies is my village. A lot of the censuses were filled in Welsh because we've got people that either speak only Welsh or they speak English and Welsh, and they've decided Welsh is their first language. They'll fill it in Welsh.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know, but there's a lot of standard things on the census form, so it doesn't matter so much because they do actually help you on Find My Path with some of these things. They will actually help you with the Welsh census things and tell you what some of the common things are. So it's always on there. It's always worth looking if it's something you're not familiar with, looking at the information on that record set.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to show us before we move on? I just really wanted to spend time on this.
Yeah, I wanted to show you what you got results from the newspaper collection. So if you just put somebody's name in, so all I put in that was William Roslin, and right, it looks like we've only got 3, but if you actually go to show all,
oh yeah, be careful there.
It brings them up. It doesn't bring them up in any particular order. And these will be any newspapers but you can filter. Then you can filter by the place of publication, the date it was published.
Mm-hmm.
So you can filter it down to
very early one. Yeah,
you can filter it down to, like, I could filter this down. If I filter it, right, there's only 4 there. You can actually filter it right down to an individual year and what.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So in 1825, we had this one particular person, which is in Lincolnshire, which I'm not surprised because that's one of our oldest newspapers is the Stamford Mercury. So I'm not surprised that and this family were around in that area, so that would make it
likely nearby. Yeah.
But it's but you can do it if you get a lot of results. You can filter it down to and if it comes up with a particular time period and you want to look for a different time period, you just close that and then just go back to the date published and find the time period that you're interested in. I mean, they've got one there that's between 2000 and 2024, so that's quite recent. So it may not be something that you actually want, but because sometimes some of these things will just pick out if you've got a name, it might pick out half of the name, or it might pick out a location. So sometimes they will come up with things that aren't of interest, but you can actually filter it down.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Let's pull up the actual newspaper itself, that post. So I imagine you click on the image.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you have got is a clipping,
or did it zoom in?
It zoomed in, but sometimes it doesn't zoom in very well. But it will zoom in on an individual thing if it's found it. So like this might be of interest to me because of the name and that. So if I wanted to, I could just clip it, and the clipping tool will just clip it and just adjust it to what you want, and then you just clip it, and you can either add it to your tree, add it to a collection, you can share it, and you can print it or download it.
Okay, and it has a link there. Could you share the link in the private chat, and I'll pull it up on my screen to show what it looks like? Okay. In the private. Okay. All right. And then I'll share my screen so y'all can see what it looks like. All right. Okay. So first of all, it took me to the website. And Okay, it's fine. I'm not logged in. So I didn't have to be logged into the website to see this. It gives me the clipping from the particular newspaper. Is it enough for a citation? Well, that's their kind of citation. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it. All right. Image courtesy of the British Library Board. Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Can I download it? Let's see. Print or download. Wow, this would be great. If I find something, I could send the link by text to my grandchildren because we tend to text each other on our cell phones. Now, let me see. Read the newspaper itself. Remember, I'm not logged in. Let's see what happens. Yeah, that's okay. Free membership. And free for 7 days. However, I'm pretty sure they'd be really happy to just see that particular post, especially if it was like this, a remembrance. This was this was printed in 2001, remembering somebody on is that their 10th anniversary of the passing of that person?
Would have been, yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. And actually, it's smart for them to put this component here because this is another way to bring people into their service to join Find My Past. Thank you, Hillary, for spending time talking with us about this. I appreciate that. What's next on the docket? Let's see. Got to go look on our list. Oh, you're going to talk to us a little bit. This is basically your show today. We're going to talk about WikiTree things, and I'll pull them up both. Do you want me to share? These are quick things coming up.
Yeah.
So the first one I'm showing, I'll share my screen again, is, guys, she's our WikiTree gal. That's all there is to it. And
these are the countdowns to the WikiTree week. And I'm actually on the one from the October the 17th, the YouTube thing, because I and 3 others do a Zoom session with new members on WikiTree to try and help them if they've got any questions and problems and things. I don't join in on both of them. They do 2 sessions a month, but one of the sessions is on a Thursday evening in the US, and it would be something like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning over here. So I don't do that one, but I do the one they do on a Sunday at the end of the month.
Right.
And that's a better time for us in the UK. It's something like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday afternoon. So that's we just help people if they're stuck and if they're quite happy for us to have a look at some profile that they're stuck on. So there's lots of other things that they're advertising on the WikiTree week, and then that's the WikiTree symposium, which is where there's lots of speakers and it's all free.
Okay, so this is the symposium link. And these are your guest speakers that day. Lunch break, paper trail, hopping down, using AI. This will be an interesting one for those of you curious about AI for research. New Zealand Society of Genealogists. David Allen Lambert. And isn't Melissa Barker doing the challenge and people are working on her tree like they did Randy's?
Yes, they are this week. Yeah. I would have signed up, but everything's in the US and I'm just not a good US researcher. There's very little there. So.
Oh, this is a multi-day event, the symposium.
Yeah. They've got enough speakers now to do.
Is there the handouts are linked?
There'll be a lot on that page. There's a lot of information on the page. Yeah.
Oh, with the technical terms too.
Oh.
very good.
Mm.
So is there a fee for this?
No, it's all free.
Okay, that's good to know. Here's the actual schedule.
Mhm.
All right, we got a bunch of conversations going on the YouTube side. So let's switch gears and figure out what the heck is going on. It's kind of hard for me to keep track of it when it's not on topic. So who's going? I think we need to pull. First of all, thank you, Hillary, for sharing Find My Past and answering some questions here.
Hmm.
I think Frank has been talking with someone. What is the PDF file that people want? What's going on?
That was from Monique Riley. She pointed out that Paul Dunn has done a spreadsheet with on the Family Search Library website, the Wikipedia, about the coverage.
Oh, the coverage
of the church records in England.
Okay, so let me pull up.
It's quite some years old, but
okay. So would it be in the Research Wiki, Monique?
She sent it the PDF to Randy. I don't know.
Okay, so England church records.
Randy has pointed the link in the private.
Okay. Okay, here's the PDF. All right. So this is I am human lately. Okay, wow.
You are not sharing at the moment.
I'm not. Oh, okay. Well, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, let me zoom way in. So, yeah. All right. Okay, so he's saying who's got it? Family Search, Find My Past, Ancestry, OPC, old online parish clerk. Boy, I haven't thought of that one for a while. The genealogist. Look at all these. Boyd's Marriage Index, which is now on Find My Past, and the Society of Genealogists. So there's a color code as to who's got what for each of these counties. Wow. Now, what is the date on this? He'd updated some of these things in 2018. Oh, then he broke it down this way. Wow. So the last time it was updated was 2019. So 5 years ago, a lot has happened since then.
Oh, it has, yeah.
So you want the link over on the other side? I think Randy can do that. Yeah, he's already done it. Yeah, thank you, Randy, for doing that. It makes it look like I'm doing all this stuff and actually they're doing it. All right, so I knew it was something good if you guys were getting interested, but I couldn't keep up with it when I'm trying to pay attention to Hillary. Yeah. I can only do 43 things at once.
I was just wondering if it is up to date, actually. I'll have a look. Because it's not that up to date, because Ancestry's now got a lot of Hampshire stuff on it, and that's not mentioned at all. And so there's quite a lot has changed since then. That needs updating.
Okay. But it gives you an idea of where to look too, just looking at the color code. So if you're new to British research, yeah. And this is just so it's England and Wales. Okay.
Scotland's very different. It doesn't have the same registration system as we do. It has its own registration system and everything, so it's quite different.
So how about next week if we look at Scotland? Because it did something completely different. you want to pray you have Scottish ancestry because everything's there. Pretty much. Yeah. Wow. So if we were to, here's the link to the England Church Records part of the wiki that explains what a parish is, a chapelry, a diocese, etc. Yeah. Let me give you this link. The Church Records of England at the Family Search website has an updated table. Is that where I am? I think it is. Okay.
Yeah, makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because they're always updating the things. I mean, Ancestry came and continue, and Family Past, they're continually doing more scans of things. They're going to be covering a lot more, and some things that maybe one website was covering, if they're I don't know how long they license it for, but if their license runs out, it's possible that it will move to another website.
Yeah. At least we know they're digital. At least the transcript, if not the actual images, or vice versa. Okay, so Randall is saying yes, please do Scotland. So we will do scotlandspeople.gov.uk next week. How's our time, Maria? I'm pulling you up. I can't see my phone. I have no idea.
Yeah, we're okay. We have a few more minutes till 20 after the hour.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
See what I will say one thing before we leave the subject of church records in England. Old Myrt made a mistake when I was first doing research, and I need to let you know. I looked for the area where my ancestors were from in the catalog. This is when the catalog was on microfiche. Okay, wasn't even on CD yet. And so I ordered church records that cover the time period that my ancestors were supposed to be there. But I wasn't thinking of Quaker records, Church of England records, or any kinds of these other Church of England's the official church. So when I didn't find them in the church record, the one little roll of microfilm that I ordered in those days, it was probably $1.50. I think when they were done, it was practically $9 to bring a film in from Salt Lake to Florida. Didn't mind, it saved me a trip. But I just thought, oh, great. No church record for my ancestors' christening or marriage or burial. No. Look at the variety of nonconformist religions. Let me pull this up. That are being reported here. Quaker, Roman Catholic. You got to please use the research wiki at Family Search. Please.
I couldn't find some baptisms for some of my family, and yet I knew they were in a particular area, and it was at a stage where you could get the birth things if you wanted to. But at the time, I was in the main, mostly with birth things. It tends to be more direct ancestors that I've been getting rather than the whole families.
Yeah.
But recently, they put some non-conformist records up on Ancestry. And I found out that these people were christened in the Methodist Church, which is non-conformist. And so the one I really want, I can't find because at the moment there's no records on early enough to find that person.
Oh,
but I know I've got non-conformists in both sides of my family. So I will find that I don't find things in the parish records because they were non-conformists, and I've got Quakers in my one name study, so I know full well that I've had to look at Quaker records, and Quaker records can be very good.
Yeah,
they're go back another generation. They quite often say who the parents of these people in this record were. So
yeah, when the Quaker records that cousin Russ and I worked with for our early Welsh Quakers were wonderful. They had to come with a letter of recommendation from their previous monthly meeting, which is what they called their congregation, like a parish. But they didn't have a parish building. They might have had a meeting space if they'd been there long enough, but they frequently just met in someone's home. Yeah, it's all quite interesting to study it. But you know what?
Sure.
The challenge of research is to find out what records survived from that time period when your ancestors lived there, not just what happens to be online or on film somewhere if you're to go to an archive or library to view it. We get spoiled when it's so much is available online. And we think, oh, well, that's it. No, there's so much more.
And not just the main websites either. I like to go and find local history societies and things like that, because they often have records that you don't on their websites, if they've got one, that you might not find on one of the standard ones. I've got school records from a local history society because they never made it to the local archive. They've been kept in the local museum because that's where they're more relevant for. So
another interesting concept is there's a thing called Boyd's Marriage Index, which I'm sure you're aware of. Well, Percival, wasn't his name Percival Boyd? Only could index the records that were part of the collection at the facility where he was. It didn't mean it was comprehensive for the whole of England. And there's another index as well. I just can't recall its name right now. And by the way, Boyd's Marriage Index is available and searchable at Find My Past. I'm pulling it up and I will give you the link in the comments here. Okay, I think we're losing me. Have you lost me?
No, you're here.
Okay, it's taking forever for a comment to get up there.
Yeah.
Okay. Monique says she likes Quaker records. She's been able to trace her Quaker line many generations. She even took the British Institute on Quakers. Yes, I have a lifetime membership that I paid for. I think the British Institute does a great job. They just concluded a week-long institute last weekend. All right. Jill is here, and it took a while to get her in. But Jill, I'd like to pull you up on the panel and discuss with you a few things because you've been a busy girl. Let's see. Let's pull her up. At the beginning, while you were still trying to find the link, I asked everyone on the panel what have they been doing, genealogically speaking, and you took a trip of a lifetime.
Yes.
And so let's take these last 6 minutes, which doesn't sound like long, but talk to me about how you prepared to take the trip. And is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah. So I think my trip was a combination of walk in the steps of your ancestors and do a little tiny bit of research in a repository. So it wasn't to go to a place and sit there for days kind of thing. So I had to strategize very carefully what I wanted exactly to research, because I knew I'd be able to convince my husband to go on the walk with your ancestors business, but he wouldn't be so pleased with sitting there watching me turn documents. So I have the first tip is to make sure you're clear about your goals. Is it a walk with your ancestor, or is it a repository search, or is it like mine? What's the percentage, of repository versus Walk with Your Ancestors. So the next thing is that the repositories are the more difficult, just simply because each repository runs a little differently. I had help. I'd actually hired a Danish genealogist to assist me. I crafted a very careful research question. I knew exactly what I wanted to get because I knew it wasn't available online. And that's why you have to do that pre-research to make sure that it's not online.
Yeah, you don't want to waste your time when
you don't want to waste your time.
Yeah.
Although, there's great joy in just holding the original parish record, even if it's online. But nevertheless, this time it was just to determine. I had 2 half brothers of my ancestor who had gotten divorces in about 1780 or 1810 in Denmark. Very unusual, very unusual. And so I wanted to know why. And so I hired this Danish researcher, and she found the links to the documents. So I knew where they were, and I knew what the links were, and I knew what to ask. So I had a really tight research question. The problem is that one of them was just like a manuscript where they had not indexed it, even though it was a court record. It didn't have a docket like we see. It just was court record after court record after court record. And I would have to turn the pages one by one, or, even because it was online, just turn the film image by image. And I could do that anywhere.
Yeah.
So, but I thought if they had an index in the repository that they didn't have online, maybe I could get somewhere, but they didn't. So that kind of answered that question. So I had a question about whether the records were available indexed, and they weren't. So I can do the page flipping at home. Doesn't matter. So that's okay. The other records were not online, but the index was. So I could find a volume number, I could find the record number and that sort of thing. So here's my next tip, is tell the repository ahead of time that you're coming. I unfortunately hit a weekend and a staff training thing. So there was 4 days. Well, I was still trying to craft what I asked for. And I asked for it on, I think it was on Saturday or Sunday, and I was going to arrive on Monday. So they didn't even look at it until early morning on Monday. And I was scheduling my travel through Denmark to get to the repository in the right time, and that sort of thing. I checked parking, I checked their hours, I checked all that stuff. But I didn't get them the message of what records I was looking for. So I walked in and I showed them the report. I said, this is what I'm looking for. These are the records I'm looking for. And the first words out of his mouth were, well, we might not have them stored here.
Oh.
So I was momentarily very tiny, get that genealogical angst going, only to remember that my Danish researcher had told me they were there. So I felt, we'll let him fuss about it a little bit, but I bet he can go in the back room and pull them. And he did.
So you're saying that we need to probably send it a week or two in advance.
I think a week ahead of time would be fine. But, that 2-day staff training thing really cut into the thing anyway. So that, I'm not sure I could have gotten it to them on time anyway. But because the whole process of requesting something was very set. It had a comment thing, of course, all in Danish. I couldn't read Danish. I had to putz through it. So I wasn't a very successful anticipator, shall we say. In the end, so I got 4 boxes. My report was going to be in one of those boxes. And I started, actually 3 of those boxes, going to be in one of the 3 boxes, because he separated first, and that was a court action. And then he got a divorce, and that was another action.
Oh.
So I had 4 boxes. One held the separation. One of the 3 held the divorce. So then it was trying to figure out how to read the coding of the catalog and translate that into what it was. I should have asked him a whole lot earlier. This is my kind of third tip, is just they know these records. They know how to get into the records. I asked the guy at the desk, I'm not finding this record, and I don't see a number 40 at all. And so he actually couldn't help me. He had to go to the back and get somebody else to help him to figure out how to do it. And then he came back and he said, this is how you do it. And I went, oh,
Okay.
of course. And so I found it right away. Once
good.
I had kind of how the records were set up. And the reason why he didn't know was because these had been done back in the late 1800s, had been cataloged back in the 1800s. And they had a system that had changed like 3 or 4 times since then.
Oh,
So he didn't know how these were organized, but he knew the records. So I kept, once I found him, 6 pictures, take them home.
so they let you use your camera.
Use my camera. I couldn't, of course, take in a lot of stuff. I could take in my computer. I could take in pieces of paper, but not a tablet. I could take in a pencil, not a pen. I could take in my camera. I don't like photocopiers because I think they're harsher on a record than a camera is. So I use a camera as many times as people will let me. So that was fine. But I cleared all that when I walked in. Can I do this? Can I do this? And then he said, here's where the lockers are. Go put your stuff in a locker. That sort of thing. So in that regards, once I actually found where the record was, I was only in the repository about 2 hours.
This is good.
So I had a very specific research question. I knew where I was going. I was in the right repository. That's a tricky thing too, is making sure you're in the right repository, and just get there, get there during their working hours and ask for help.
An archivist here on the panel is saying that external storage is the joy of handing out archival holdings.
Right.
I think of Manatee County, Florida. They have the courthouse, which is tiny, and the current docket files are there. But then there are 2 levels of storage that I know of. And the very oldest ones are in an old Carnegie library that's called the Historical Records Library. So it depends on what time period.
Yeah.
And Frank knows they just moved everything. So yeah.
Right. So it was a successful trip because I was prepared in some regards, not prepared in others. But sometimes you got to go with serendipity.
Totally get that. I've had several places to go in Germany, and I had photocopied a map from the Shell Atlas, which was the map of the day recommended to me. So I bought one before I left the U.S. and we figured out where to fly into Germany and where to fly out of Germany based on either a red dot on the map meant stay there longer, see what's available. You might have to do research, and I had papers for that. And the rest were green, which meant something happened in our family there. You just want to get the lay of the land. I learned very quickly that in Germany, they recycle those burial plots in the courtyard or in a churchyard. I
found no gravestones. My folks all immigrated from this area. Actually, I had a great grandmother who died, I think, in 1931, and her grave was long gone.
Yes.
So there just wasn't anybody there anymore. That were the tombstones of my ancestors. So the thing I sought out was the inside of the church. And due to Reformation, these Lutheran churches were painted over white generally, but they just couldn't let go of that very ornate altarpiece or the pulpit or the baptismal font. And so I just found, if the church was open, and a lot of them aren't anymore, and a lot of them aren't even operational anymore. And the font, though, in the place where my grandfather was born, was from 1500.
Oh, my heavens.
So I knew that he had been baptized using that font, as had all of his ancestors. So,
did you get to touch it?
Oh, touched it, picture taken. Yeah. Oh, the whole business. Oh, absolutely.
That's just a marvelous experience. Right. Okay, I'm getting the note that it's time to wrap it up. Thank you for your advice. This was an interesting discussion, because eventually we all have a dream of being able to go walk where our ancestors once walked, whether it's domestic or foreign from wherever we live now. Right. We want to experience that, because the tree might not still be there, but the hills are, and the mountains are the same, or the farmlands, or whatever it is.
I took pictures of each one of the villages where they lived. I took pictures of each one of the churches, the baptismal font, if I could. And so just generally, like you say, try to get an idea. And basically, I found that the area that they came from in northern Denmark looks just like Iowa, where they settled.
That was the same for me with Germany, where Conrad Weiser came. The same geraniums grow in Pennsylvania, where they ended up settling.
Right.
The same climate, the farmlands were similar. The crops in the fields were similar. And it made me cry when I recognized that. And I'd been on the Rhine, where on the east side, you had the mountains with the vineyards. I don't know how they picked those grapes unless they slid down between the rows of the grapevines. And that was very different terrain from where my Conrad was. You're making memories. All right. Well, thank you, Jill. Appreciate you. And keep up with your PT now, okay?
Well, I've got my heating pad on my knee right now. So it is elevated a bit.
We can relate. We certainly can. All right, folks. Well, what a time we have had. I so appreciate everyone who helped. Thank you, Monique, for being our, a member of our panel, contributing to the conversation today, and helping us find out more about the records that Hillary was sharing with us. We got to explore Find My Past, and I hope that you will go look and see what's available. I remember the days before you could put a tree over there and save things on an ancestor in that tree. They've really beefed up their website. It's worth looking at. Well, nothing left to say, but I'm Dear Myrtle, your not so retired friend in genealogy. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.